Why can't I host?
Okay, hello guys. Thank you for joining us again for this is our very first Kobolds Campfire, where we're going to be talking a little bit about what happened in episode 10 of the Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign. Today I have with me Rogar, our fighter, played by Base of Operations, and Weird Hal, our human bard, played by Miniax Miniatures. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat today about that last episode, maybe a little bit, and because it's our first Kobolds Cavern, probably a little bit about sort of where the story is so far, and how you feel about that story, and sort of how you feel your adventurers and yourselves are dealing with that. so let's start with just a general question, guys. I mean, I know that some of you are more experienced than others, but how are you feeling about just generally? How are you feeling about this campaign so far as players?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it thoroughly. I mean, this is the very first time I've played. Well, it's kind of I kind of started playing this. I started playing Adventure League at the same sort of time. But I'm really new to D&D. So within the last 2 months, I've ever played games. So I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying the entire process of playing D&D in general. And this story has kind of really gripped me a lot.
Well, I mean, as a DM, this is my first time DMing. My first adventure experience was sort of playing with a few random people on Roll20, and then, of course, joining Adventures League with you, Nate, and playing as a character for you. But then, and seeing the amount of work you had to put into that to be a DM, to sort of like develop your story, to particularly in Adventures League, which is I think even more difficult to create that sense of cohesion while still allowing people to jump in at any point.
Right. Well, that's kind of like that's the great thing about playing Adventures League, but it's also kind of the drawback at the same time. It just in the sense that it's always really easy to get okay. So levels 1 through 4 is considered like tier 1. Levels 5 through 10 is considered tier 2. Okay. As your characters progress through each of the tiers, it gets harder and harder to find a game.
Yeah.
For your more advanced characters, and that's kind of, I don't want to say that's like a downfall of it because it doesn't take away from the fun of the game. But when you play a longer campaign like Horde of the Dragon Queen that we're playing on Fridays, you know, you get to really develop your character. And I've played in more than several extended campaigns, and my highest character that I had so far made it to. I had a rogue trickster at level 10, and I was playing as a goblin. So my charisma was a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
and I just remember feeling like while we were playing Adventures League, I just remember feeling like how much I really was connected to that character, and how you really don't have time playing Adventures League in the first tier to kind of build that kind of rapport with your actual character. And I'm really enjoying like having that experience with Weird Hal now in this campaign with you guys, you know, because it's like I get to hang out with him every week on a regular schedule, right? And I feel like I know him a little better every time we play.
No,
if you know what I mean.
Is I kind of feel exactly the same way with my Rogar character, because I'd created him originally because the very first time I used him was in Adventure, and I was feeling that, you know, I kind of, you know, I'd spent some time getting a backstory together and really kind of understanding, you know, where did I want to go with the character. And like you were just saying, with Adventure League, you don't really kind of get, especially in those early levels, that connection. And so when the Horde of the Dragon Queen came along, I thought Adventure League is perfectly fine for me to just kind of roll up a new character and carry on playing over there. And with this new character that is basically the very first D&D character I ever had, where I could transplant him into a longer ongoing story where I could really kind of understand and get to grips with him in a way that, you know, the Adventure League hadn't been able to do for me.
Yeah,
And I enjoyed that process thoroughly.
yeah. Well, I mean, as a dungeon master, I mean, first of all, having this is my, as I said, my first experience being a dungeon master, and actually being able to help see those stories start to develop and come to life is really, I mean, if anybody who says that the dungeon master doesn't play characters, it doesn't play D&D right. I don't think. You guys play one character, I've got to play about 15 at once, which is a bit of fun. Despite my coughing fit in the last thing, playing my farmer style scouts, give me a real coughing fit.
There are some characters that stand out more than others.
Yeah, God. Yeah, God. I definitely started to fall, but I think it was because it was such a long game. That last one was quite long, or maybe I was just really tired. I can't remember. But I do remember like sort of falling into the Family Guy trap. You know, where you have multiple characters but who have the same voice. You know, and you don't really realize until they're in the same room together, and then you're like, they sound exactly alike. And that's been one of my, I think that's been one of my pitfalls as a DM. I mean, another thing is I love the characters. I would definitely go back to, I think it was a nice experiment using rolling for characters or giving that option, but I think I would stick with the standard terrain or points buy from now on, just because.
I like point buy.
Well,
I like point buy the best.
Well, me too. I mean, and just because you don't get characters that may be a bit, I mean, excessive for the level of game. Because I mean, the thing is, you want that challenge, and if it's not challenging, if it's not challenging for your character to take on some kobolds in combat while you're level 1, and you just basically turn them into mist as you walk through them, you know.
Like when a certain Dragonborn has, you know, 20 strength with a +7 to hit or whatever, or +5 to hit.
But to be fair, you can only kill one kobold a turn with that. Whereas you know, to be fair, you can only kill one kobold a turn. Whereas, you know, you've got 4 kobolds all attacking with advantage. There's a chance that they're going to poke through your armor and do some damage. You still only have basic HP, you know, going for you. And
that's when the DM is able to actually hit you with a 19 AC.
or as you might have seen in our last game, a mushroom attacking and hitting on 20s, you know. I mean, I'm not gonna meta, but if you know the stats of the violet fungus, you will know that there's some pretty good rolling that went on in that last game. So I mean, I think at this point we're going to jump into a few questions that I just sort of put together, and I'll let you to be honest to our audience. I mean, I'll let you have a look at them a little bit earlier just so you get some ideas together. But how do you feel about where your character is so far? Your personal story. How are you feeling about that in the campaign?
I guess I would say Weird Hal is he's kind of starting to develop a sense of okay. So Weird Hal's background is that he was raised basically by monks, although he himself is not a monk, he's a bard, but he studied music in a
monastery.
A monastery, right, exactly. And he lived a very sheltered life with only religious men around, not a lot of interaction with females at all, and not really very much opportunity to have learned kind of how social interactions work with people who you don't know. He's really distrustful of strangers. He's really also kind of extremely naive, but he's kind of starting to learn a little bit. I feel like he's kind of starting to notice some things that maybe back at the start of the campaign he wouldn't really have been aware of, like when people interact with each other, I feel like Weird Al is starting to gain a little bit more insight, maybe of like perhaps the subtext of things people are saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just small examples like that. I feel like Weird Al, especially in this last session, maybe learned a lesson about being more careful. Not necessarily just careful, but also mindful of his actions.
Awesome. And what about you, Rogar?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that Rogar has had much of a chance to really kind of show who he is in terms of who he is as a character just yet. I mean, most of what we've done in this first few episodes, in these first 10 episodes of Dragon Queen, is kind of thrust him into a situation that he just got to deal with, and he hasn't really had a chance. We've had a few glimpses though.
Yeah, I was thinking with Cuth, like the way he's interacting with Cuth, and
with Cuth,
yeah.
And obviously we've had a few abrasive situations where he's not very comfortable with those cultists and the kobolds. So I mean, you kind of get the gist of where he's coming from and his moral background. But I think I'm hoping, and I think later on when we start getting out of this initial attack by these cultists, I think we're going to be able to start getting out into the wider world, and we're going to start seeing the things that Rogar has to deal with, in terms of the fact that he is firstly, he's a dragonborn.
Yeah.
So he hasn't had a bad upbringing. He's quite proud of where he's come from as a dragonborn. He is quite proud anyway, but he's kind of proud where he's come from. He's he's a blacksmith. He's out trying to improve his craft.
Yeah.
And so he's quite happy who he is as a person, but obviously he's going to come across people that firstly don't like dragonborns because they're dragonborns. Second of all, he's a red dragonborn. I think the correct term is chromatic dragonborn. So he actually has a color. He's not metallic. So which can be seen as an evil dragonborn, and as we have seen so far, he's anything but evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting as you're playing into a system where dragons are kind of the main focus of a lot of what we do, and the fact that Rogar is, I mean, a lot of people may not know much about the Dragonborn background, but like the Dragonborn are not really dragons; they have dragon ancestry, but they have they've gone their own way. They're not really defined by good or evil in the same way as their ancestors are, and that's really quite interesting to see Rogar playing.
Yeah, and I think
just don't anybody tell that to the kobolds.
Don't tell the kobolds. They love Rogar.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be interesting, as a player who is new and kind of choosing. I suppose it's kind of a risque kind of race to choose as a new player, because of reading through the rule books and reading through the Dungeons and Dragons wider stuff, there is a case of I'm going to possibly have to deal with a lot of stereotypical hatred towards my character, but also as a player, giving you as the DM the opportunity to kind of play on that. And giving me those opportunities to deal with as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when you guys come to me and say, "Hey, how about this sort of idea for my character?" And I like to. This is the way I sort of see them reacting in different situations, because it really makes it easier for me as the DM to start thinking, "Hey, what sort of things could I throw in the path of this character to challenge those assumptions?" I mean, Rogar might be very virtuous in character, but what happens when you get to this situation where there is no right choice? And
the other thing as well is that the viewers that we've had watching us before we started here on the Meeple Palace, when specifically we joke about it a lot, about when the cult of Rogar rose up from in the ranks of the Kobolds. It's quite an interesting, as much as it's kind of jokey, which a lot of comedy kind of does have quite a serious undertone to it. That particular moment in Rogar's interaction there was a real battle for himself, because he had to stand there and tell this congregation that he was a follower of Tiamat, the most evil dragon that he could, that.
Yeah, you did declare that. You did declare that out loud in front of about 60 kobolds and 12 cultists.
And internally, he's like, I just want to get out of here. This is not comfortable for me. I have to lie. First of all, he's lying, and second of all, what he's lying about.
Yeah. He was probably. I mean, I felt worried for Rogar, that Rogar might be offending his own deity.
Yeah.
I was concerned.
Yeah. Well, we haven't really determined what Rogar's deity is yet, have we? I mean, Rogar doesn't really seem to have a particular deity he's worshipping.
But we do know that it's not Tiamat.
Well, at the moment, the only prayer he's offered has been to Tiamat, so technically...
Yeah.
The only god who's taken notice of him at the moment is Tiamat.
Weird Hal actually credits Timora with that event there.
What, the luck? The goddess of the god of luck.
Yeah. Just being good luck.
I mean, as a DM, and again, I'm not going to give away my secrets, but there are options. I have sort of keystone options and things available to me where some of it's off the cuff. Some of it is completely off the cuff. Some of it is just like, is this likely to happen? And then I roll my own sort of difficulty save to see whether that would actually happen in this sort of situation. And how might the kobolds react to a dragonborn praying? I mean, you decided, go and find a place in the middle of the thing and pretend you're praying so as to get some privacy so that Weird Al can talk to you. And so how is this gonna go down with a whole load of kobolds who are being completely mistreated and tend to be left alone by the other bigger, more powerful races and mistreated that way, and to see like one of the dragon people having a prayer in their tents, around their tents, amongst them. And get this.
I don't know whether it did much in terms of favor for him, but Rogar did actually flick them a silver coin before he'd done that as well.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah, he treated them kindly. He treated them kindly, and you even when you were sort of interacting with them, when they sort of like, the kobold came up to you and started chatting to you. Little Copernicus came up to you and started chatting to you, and let me show you around, blah blah blah, and you were relatively kind to him for a kobold. So I mean,
at the same time, he's like, I gotta get out of here. This is not right. I'm gonna get discovered any second. Let me give you a tour, buddy. Now, thanks, but hey, I appreciate it. But no, seriously,
you got patted on the shoulder by Cyanrath, didn't you?
But I mean, again, that's another insight into Rogar's character. He's even if he's in a situation where he just does not want to be, he doesn't even want to mingle with these people, he's not going to just turn around and start slapping them around. He's still, even if essentially he was in enemy territory, and he still isn't going to just start swinging his warhammer around. He's going to maintain that air of the moral ground. You're not currently attacking me, so I'm not going to do the same thing to you.
It was a nice bit of RP. I'm going to sort of jump forward a little bit here. I want to just ask both of you, which character do you feel that your character feels closest to at the moment in our group? If you had to choose another character, I'm talking about characters, not players. If Rogar had to choose a character out of Weird Hal, Kellum, and Weird Hal, Kellum, Vistra. Who's the one that they feel closest to?
I think, to be honest with you, I think Rogar, the way I'm going to answer this question is more about the case of, who will Rogar jump in to save? And I think, to be honest, if he had a choice between, all of those characters, if all three of them were in trouble, I think Rogar would jump to Vistra's aid quicker than, or not, or he would choose to save Vistra first. I think, and in terms of that, I think it's more of a case of Pedrick has definitely can hold his own, and I think Weird Hal in his own weird way is capable of kind of squirming his way out. Let's ignore the fact that he almost died last episode, but he tends to be able to work his way out of various situations, and that's not to say that Vistra couldn't, but I think it's more of a case of Rogar has seen that kind of vulnerability hidden behind Vistra, and I think he would kind of lend that kind of, even in those dire situations, give her those beacons of hope that she is so desperately looking for, even though, that's not to say she couldn't sort herself out, but I think Rogar would definitely kind of say, even in your darkest times, there's still hope. And so I think I think he's definitely bonding towards Vistra.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, in that last game, I think Vistra was probably the most competent out of everybody. She took not a single point of damage in the entire game.
Can you repeat that? We lost you.
Oh, sorry. I was. Is that better? Am I on?
Yeah.
I was just saying. I feel it's quite funny because Vistra has gone from being. I think Vistra. She's not with us this week, but I think she's in chat. Yeah, she's in chat.
Yeah, she is currently.
But she'll be with us probably. She'll be with us next week for our debrief. But I think I could say, as the DM, from what I'm seeing, Vistra has gone from being probably one of the more vulnerable characters to being one of the most competent characters in a way, because you've got because you've moved because I mean, if you've played a rogue before, you need that cunning action. You need that ability to dive back into a hide, or to disengage, or to dash, all those things. Particularly as a dwarf, being able to get your dash, your 50-foot dash, is really important.
That being said, it could be interesting, actually, if you ask that same question in its time. Where, I mean, I know that Hal hasn't answered the question yet, but I think Rogar could end up changing, that answer to that question because of Vistra's actions in the last few episodes. Is kind of like, okay, so you can hold your own. And I did see that she said, "Am I saying she's a damsel in distress?" I don't think it is quite the fact that she's a damsel in distress. I think it was more of a case of these group of people have come together, and of the four of them, is it 4 or 5 of them at a time? Vistra was now, Vistra was the one that had that air of vulnerability, and I think it was that. So far, Rogar has kind of tried to be a beacon to say, look, you can hold your own, but we are a beacon of hope. I would be interested to hear what Hal's got to say.
Well, I can tell you this: Weird Hal, as far as feelings of camaraderie and friendly feelings, is definitely leaning towards Rogar, but if we're going to talk about if everybody was going down in battle, who would I say? Yeah, it's got to be Vistra, but that's because Vistra's a female character. The boys can handle their own biz. That's not a
careful
comment from, that's not a comment from this guy's viewpoint. That's a comment from Hal's viewpoint. He has been always not even subjected to exposure to females at all. These are all new, and so he's got a real soft spot in his heart for all the gals.
I'm interested to see how Vistra takes advantage of that later on in the future. So, Hal, be my meat shield, will you? While I just go over there and do this.
Oh, I always do that anyway. You don't even need to ask. I'm very gung ho and clumsy as a character.
All right.
She's going to use you as a lookout later.
I'm going to ask as well. I mean, sorry, this is for my own feedback. NPCs. How are we doing with NPCs? Who do we? I mean, I know we've still got a small bunch of them at the moment. But how do we feel with NPCs? Have we got any particular favourites so far that you've liked interacting with, or that you feel has been best for your character?
Nate's favorite is definitely the matron from the keep, who is like so crabby and pushy all the time. She's always like, she never has anything nice to say, no matter how good it's going. She's just picking it apart, no matter how good it is. She's definitely Nate's favorite. I would say Hal's favorite is Taelus's friend, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, Alessandra.
Alessandra. He felt a very strong liking for Alessandra, but she didn't. I think he just assumed that like chemistry was a two-way thing, maybe.
It was a bit of an epic fail there, wasn't there, if I remember correctly?
That was a fail. That was a fail. He leaned in for the romantic kiss, and she was like, "Oh."
I think. Actually, funny enough, I think I'm gonna choose two different ones as well. I see. As me as a player, and I have to agree with Misty on this one. Cobbler the Tailor, just the interactions that Cobbler the Tailor has with the PCs is just hilarious. In Rogar, Rogar's only ever met him once, but I think, and in terms of Rogar, I think of all the NPCs, I think Rogar really has only a real connection to two of them. Governor Nighthill, but I think that's more business than anything else. So I think, emotionally, I think the closest the Rogar would feel emotionally to would have to be Cuth, I think, and his family.
Yeah, I mean, you built a little rapport with Cuth, and I mean, Cuth. I mean, as a DM, I mean, I was not expecting to turn Cuth into a character, but it's one of those lovely moments where basically a bit character can be fleshed out, become a fully individual character, and again about Cobbler. I mean, if anybody's watching and they know where I got that name from, well done. And what series I got that name from. Good on you. You're reading the right sorts of books. I mean, just having the opportunity to play an absolutely just flighty character who is a shrewd businessman, as we've seen as well. So put him in two different situations. He's a panicky, flighty person who was beautifully inspired by Weird How to go out and gather a massed horde of people to sort of traipse behind you on your way to the keep. Inadvertently,
we saved a lot of people thanks to that. Actually,
what was
it? Six villagers hidden in the woods thanks to Cobbler's efforts.
Well,
I think Cobbler's efforts that got us to level 2 in the first.
It was, yeah. I mean,
right.
you got XP. I mean, not telling you exact amounts of stuff, but you got XP for every person that you saved, and you basically had like a train of like half the village behind you and got them safely into the keep. So I mean, despite a few deaths, I mean, we did have Linan Swift dying, and we did have the eldest son of the family dying as well.
I mean, that's the thing. I think that was something that one thing I have learned in my short time of playing D&D. It is nice to be able to kind of turn the tables on those sorts of things. When the odds are stacked against you, and when we think back to that first episode, I don't know if anybody can go back and watch that. I don't know if it still exists.
I don't think it does anymore yet. No, I'm sorry.
But when we got to that, when you think about what we did in that first episode, the odds were stacked against us. We had a literal dragon in the sky. We had a town full of cultists and kobolds that, when you're literally fresh level 1, you've got literally bare basics player sheet in front of you. And we managed to save an entire village, and through our actions only saw 2 people die that were NPCs that were, just characters. I mean, I think that has kind of set us up for a really strong, that set us up for a really strong start, and kind of, I think, helped push the kind of been seen.
It felt very satisfying too, to overcome basically what amounts to an entire raiding party with only just the 4 of us.
Yeah,
To overcome that just by being able to sneak around,
Yeah,
pick them
I
off
mean,
one at a time, handle them in small groups when other people weren't looking. All that sneaking we did, it took a lot of time and it took a lot of effort, but it totally paid off because we did manage to, in the first two sessions, we managed to basically rescue almost all the villagers, get them to the keep, get the fires in the town extinguished, and then also rescue all the villagers who were trapped in the temple.
Yeah. And the other thing as well, it's kind of, that was kind of, I think, I'm not saying that nobody else has ever done it when playing Horde of the Dragon Queen, but essentially, you know, we know that we're playing a story that has been set out in front of us. And, you know, a lot of the end game has already been decided where the end game is. You know, it's just the journey that we take to get there. And by doing something like that in our first episode really kind of helped for me as a new player, and I'm sure the rest of the party would agree, is that it kind of helps cement us that we can have an impact on this story and how this story is going to play out. And I think that kind of helped push kind of from episode 1, where we managed to do that, and then that's pushed the RP to the next level. And the only reason why Cuth is even an NPC now, and that we have a funeral to attend, even though some of those are quite morbid and quite sad moments, but the only reason why those even exist is what we did in episode 1, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and I wanted.
You got to take it in a completely completely different direction, but at the same time, you know, you managed. You guys were. I mean, you didn't just run in and fight every fight. If you could sneak past, you tried to sneak past, and you tried to be strategic. But you did fight when you felt it was like prudent to fight. I think we can take them. These guys are gonna be done. Or in the case of Rogar, jumping out and going, "Hi guys," you know. Are you having fun burning down the village? You know, and then not quite listening to what I said to Vistra, or Vistra not quite relaying it, where I said they look like they're wearing like dragony shaped like outfits or something, and it's just like, oh, they must be other dragon people. Hey guys, oh no, it's humans.
So I also wanted to point out that having played as the dungeon master for this campaign, you'll realize this too. The thing with playing Dungeons and Dragons is that even though the events in the world are already happening and already in the book, they're just the world events. The story itself is totally written by the characters.
Oh yeah, someone else is going to play this same game and it will go completely differently.
Totally different, that's right. The story is written by the players. Only the world events are actually written in the book.
I mean, the thing about Horde of the Dragon Queen is, from what I understand, and I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me. Like listeners or whatever, tell me I'm wrong. But Horde of the Dragon Queen is quite an old game, from what I understand. It's not it's not new. It's been revamped a few times, or at least
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Actually, you probably don't realize this because it's so different. But
is it from Pathfinder?
Adventures League Season 1 is the Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign segmented into.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. And so right there you can tell that just by the setting at the start of the campaign and the different missions that you had to undergo, completely different.
Well, okay. Well, the concept of it has kind of been around a while, but this idea, I think, of, I mean, and you're right, it was completely different starting up, but I mean, it started off with just a little scuffle in a barn, and then sort of having to go down to crypts, and a certain someone starting the same incantation twice and setting the dragon statues on us twice. That was great fun. Thank you very much, Vistra. Or Abraxia. Abraxia, what does this do? Oh no, the dragon statues are animated again. That was a learning curve, wasn't it? But at the same time, you've got this story, this sort of, a lot of these concepts and ideas are not new. You know, you've got a big bad, you've got to protect the world, you've got a cult, whatever. They're not particularly new or even particularly original. Sorry, Wizards of the Coast. I'm not trying to like knock your books. But this one in particular is quite is known for being quite a hard starter. I've known a lot of people say, I've done a lot of reading. Horde of the Dragon Queen. Oh god, it's like it's actively trying to kill you all the time at the beginning, and it's like and it very often does. You know, you often do lose a character.
It was rough. I mean, the start of this campaign was rough until we hit level 3, and I think we hit level 3 in a quite an opportune moment where we had that beat that we could just say, oh, okay, right, we've got past that bit. We're in level 3 now. We've now got full health in that, and now we can start planning and kind of doing that. But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. Those first 2 levels, which were they took up 4 episodes or something like that. It was just like, wow, it was just non-stop. Oh, I'm going down. Oh, I'm nearly dead. Oh, I'm spitting up.
Yeah, I mean,
it's always like that. It's always like that. I find that when you're playing with a party, especially with new players, a lot of times they will actually just die in the first session, and then you have to be like, okay, we're going to start over and do this again. This time, be more careful.
Yeah. I run in, dead. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me in Adventurous League, wasn't it? When I was playing Felix, my guy I do a roll into the room and I bring out my staff to fight, and suddenly I get attacked by 2 wolves and I'm beating one back, and suddenly I'm down on the ground, and it was only because we had someone who could cast Healing Word on me that I managed to get back up again. And even then, it's just like, get off me, you dogs! And I've got 3 HP left. You know, it's yeah, and then you're like, take a Constitution saving throw to see whether you take poison damage. Oh no!
Come on!
It's like the world doesn't want me to live, or is actively punishing me for making thoughtless actions. You know?
Yeah.
But then, okay, talking about thoughtless actions, let's go and have a little chat about the last episode of the game. I'd like to just have a quick talk about this. We've reached the sort of like the 20-minute, the sort of the 40-minute mark. We talked, and I'm hoping when we talk again, hopefully after every other session or so, we can have a chat with you guys. But we'll try and delve more into development of Rogar and development of Weird Hal. But I'd like to just get your feedback now about how you feel about this last session. Most memorable moment. Let's go with sort of like that. Most standout moment in the last one.
I'll take this one.
So, yeah, Weird Hal, pretty naive fellow, and he didn't think that there were going to be a trap in a cave where there were guards who, I mean, I thought the guards would walk up and down the steps, so it didn't occur to me.
They skip that step. They know it's trapped, so they'll jump over it, you know.
Yeah, well, poor Weird Hal stepped right on it and got Scooby-Dooed down the ramp, slid down the ramp into some pretty weak spores. I mean, I have faced some spores before.
Yeah, but those spores really had it out for you, didn't they? I tell you what.
Okay, so what happened was Weird Hal has invisibility. He was concerned that there were going to be drakes guarding the cave.
Yep.
So he picked up what he thought was some drake scat, pulled one of these maneuvers to mask his scent.
I'm gonna clarify to our readers now who maybe missed the episode. He did not know that it was actually drake scat. He did a roll to see if he could identify it. He could not figure it. He did not know what it was. He just took a random chance.
I guessed, and then I went invisible and snuck my way into the cave, and took a look around, and everything seemed pretty kosher, pretty normal. So I went back out. I told these guys what was going on. I threw a rock to make a noise farther back in the cave to create a distraction. We split the guards up. We flanked the first guard, took him out. The second guard returned. We jumped him by surprise. And we took the guards out really easily. And then Weird Hal felt like he had checked out the situation. So he stepped down off the first step onto the second step of the stairs to see, like, if he could get a glimpse further up the trail.
Yeah.
And
Well,
slid down to his doom and very nearly expired completely. Very
yeah.
nearly.
I was watching you guys and you were all jumping around the screen, here, and I'm going. Are you just like randomly placing your characters on the screen, and then of course you move your character there. And I'm like, nobody move, because I have it all planned out, and it's all but it's really interesting, particularly because that was not the only time you sprung that trap, was it, Weird Hal?
What do you mean? I don't get it. What do you mean?
When you tried running back up
You
the
tried
stairs,
running away.
Oh, right. So, okay. So, Weird Hal, he knows his limits in combat. If he sees 4 deadly poisonous necrotic spores knocking more than half of his life off in one round, he panics. So he turned and ran back up the steps and slid right back down again.
Because you didn't. For our readers, he stepped on the. I told him, when you stepped on the middle step, you triggered the trap, and the stairs collapsed on themselves, and then you slid back down, and then you ran back up again, and you stepped on the middle step.
I'm telling you, Weird Hal. Okay, to be fair, if I had been like thinking about it, I would have thought of that. But I still think Weird Hal would have just panicked.
It was such, as you said, such a Scooby-Doo moment. It was just like zoinks, right back down, legs dangling in the air, and then just sliding back down, right back in front of the one that you just disengaged from.
Yeah. With the clave sound effect.
Yeah. That was definitely a memorable moment. Rogar, since we've had that one, were there any other parts that you enjoyed? Any other bits that you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
you liked?
I mean, the most memorable moment for Rogar was when Miniax was when Weird Hal was on Death's Door. But I think what's intrigued me the most about that last episode is to see what can come out of the little wooden dragon shape that he found. That evidently has been created by some kobold that he'd interacted with. I think it was a nice little touch actually in that episode where he found that and he's like, well, he's made an impact of some description. And I think Rogar is definitely interested to see where he could do that. I think perhaps he's got some. He may have, and perhaps a naive view that perhaps these kobolds can be turned around. We'll see. But I think it's kind of nice that he found that. He's like kept it. It looked like junk, and I think I remember you telling me when I was thinking what I was going to do with it, you were just saying it junk. It's got no skill to it whatsoever.
It's basically just it's just pure. It was what did I say? I said it was just like amateur whittling. This was just like amateur whittling.
But as an artisan, I think Rogar saw that somebody took time to make that, and they might be kobolds and they might be whatever alignment they currently are, but he saw that as that he's made an impression on somebody, and I'm keeping that because somebody took the time to make it, and we'll see where it goes from there. I think.
Yeah, I mean, as a DM as well, I think one of the only other moments for me that really jumped out was the Thunder Wave by Weird Hal, when he managed to catch 2 of the spores, but also managed to catch Pedrick and Rogar in the same shot.
Hal was lying unconscious, woke up, still in combat, prone on the ground. He was full panic mode at that point. I don't know if you've noticed, but Weird Hal does not actually like to go in the front. He did that really thoughtlessly, I must admit. That was not good thinking, and he knew that, but he wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges when you're using something like Roll20, because the characters can move, and there's something where I think you can just pick them up and drop them. And it's sometimes hard for the DM to kind of know, wait a minute, you're moving there, you're doing this, you're doing that, wait a minute, stop popping your characters around. Which, I mean, you guys were great. You guys weren't really doing that. There was only just that one little incident where I think Vistra moved down quite quickly, and at the same time as Weird Hal moved in the other direction, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got stuff to do with this. Everybody stop walking around. I think the other thing that was really quite interesting was, because a lot of the stuff that I've watched before, I mean, a lot of my experience with Dungeons & Dragons comes from watching other people online, like Critical Role or High Rollers. And there's a very, when they're standing together, when they're all around the table, you can be more, what order are you walking in, and you can sort of talk about it more as a visual thing. But then that sort of ties into like, if there are obstacles or if there's hidden enemies or whatever, you have to then know where people are in the locations as to whether they actually trigger those enemies or trigger those traps or whatever. It's interesting for me as the DM, particularly using something like Roll20. I'm not trying to shout it out. There are other systems as well, but how do you feel that
Roll20.net.
Yeah, how do you feel that Roll20 is going for you? How are you feeling using it as our gaming platform?
I mean, personally, I quite helpful. Now, I do play a real life game in at my local game store. One thing I have found about Roll20, which is such a relief, is my math skills are terrible, and so I think what Roll20 does, which is really well, is obviously you roll. You pick which stat you want to roll for,
and it just totals it all up.
It's already done the specific dice that you need, and it does the modifications to you that you need. But I think what you mentioned just a few minutes ago about the avatars, I think the avatars can be a bit of a distraction more than help. So I think it has its pros and cons. I think that the math side of it is a massive help. In terms of actual gameplay.
Yeah.
So I mean that's my view anyway.
Yeah.
I would say that in terms of ease of use, being able to get everybody together at the same time, reliability for the system, again the character sheet interaction that he was just talking about, those things are all great. I also like the fact that you can draw or use pictures for your maps.
Yeah.
I liked it. There's a lot of things that I really like about it, but being able to control where the party is moving is definitely a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because, like, Weird Hal wasn't trying to go somewhere different than the other people. He was just trying to look over. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. He was just trying to look over and see what he could see. And the same for everybody else. I'm sure everybody just wanted to look in and see what they could see, without moving so far forward that they were past where had already been explored. And I literally took that one step too far. Literally one step too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoop!
I think it's really it's been really interesting for me as well, using all these tools. I mean, I can see a lot more on the map than you can. I can see what things are going to be, what coming up, etc. And I've had to spend a bit of time working with the system to really understand it. It's very clear, but it does require some time. You have to put some effort in to actually get to know it. Sure. I mean, for example, being able to create the profiles of the monsters and just have it all ready to go, so I can drop a half dragon on the board if I want to. Now I've got like a half dragon profile. Yeah. There he goes. I can do that if I need to. It's really, really cool, and it saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of books as well. I don't have to look through so many. I don't have to leaf through so many books to get that done. Yeah, I mean, there are drawbacks and there are positives. There are drawbacks and there are positives as well. I'm going to just say, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but just being able to use that, just being that lighting effect It's really cool. I actually had a lot of fun playing with that.
I mean, that was brilliant. I did.
I just wanted to say real quick, as a DM, I find it really helpful when coming out of combat and starting to explore a new location. It's important for the DM to establish like who is leading the, like somebody has to be the leader. Then that way we're not just scattering across the map.
Exactly, and that's something that I forgot to say as a DM. I completely agree now. I mean, normally I do say, what traveling order you're going in. I forgot to say that this time, and that's I think that's what caused the incident. That's what caused it.
I think as players, and perhaps like we said, we're only 10 episodes into this, so I mean we're all still pretty new. But I think what we need to do is in future, we need to take it in turns more and to kind of explain individually what we're going to do. We can have a discussion, and then when discussing, we say to the DM, right, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then each one of us can then explain what we're doing before the next. So basically, we in our real time, we basically pause time, we discuss what we're going to do, and then we can explain to the DM.
So I'm going to go and have a look over there. I'm going to go and look at the wall. I'm going to do this.
There was that moment as well, which I messaged you about when Rogar was trying to hold an action when the guard came to check the dead guard.
Yes, that's right.
And it was kind of like, I think it would have been a bit easier. We were all kind of, what we were trying to do is kind of decide what we were going to do before you as the DM said you've kind of run out of time and the other guard has come back.
Yeah.
And I think it would be helpful that we can say, okay, so before, and we say, this is what DM is before that guy comes back, and we can explain individually what we want to do and if what actions and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Each player can choose what they're going to do individually. But
it works for some situations. In others, like for example, like when you were in the sanctuary and then the guy is basically banging on the door. I mean, with the battering ram, that makeshift battering ram. I mean, in a way, being able to say, they're hitting the wall. Make a choice, make a decision. What you're going to do is important to give that sort of that sense of urgency to making a decision. So it's not a side quest in an RPG. It's like, I can just put off the main mission while I go and do this and then come back.
You're right about that, Xander. But I do think that there was an oversight in the fact that we were not out of initiative order, so he shouldn't have been able to move more than 30 feet before we each got a chance to do what we were doing. If you remember, that all happened while we were in initiative, so he should not have been able to walk 80 feet back to us without each of us getting a turn before that.
I believe I did say that you were out of initiative, if I remember correctly.
In that case,
because I did say you were out of initiative.
In that case, maybe in the future, don't be so quick to end the combat.
Well, that's something.
And that way, you have more control over when people can act.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I'll put some. I'm probably not going to. Can I please also throw? I want to just while I'm thinking about this, while we're talking about that combat, I want to throw out a creativity. I want to mention the creativity that I thought was really interesting. What Pedrick did with the silence spell to sort of create a barrier. I thought that was really good RP.
Really clever. That was clever. I mean, essentially, that was good thinking on his part, because I hadn't even considered that. We're going to jump this guy, and it's not going to be quiet. And so, what's going to happen is we're going to jump this guy. That we'd separated for specifically to be able to take them on one at a time and do it quickly and quietly was basically going to be undone. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really quick thinking and quite clever thinking on his part. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was some really good. That was really good use of spells for role playing purposes, which is nice to see, because it's really tempting to take a spell it's really tempting to just take a spell and go, I'm going to take fireball and it's going to blow people up. But at the same time, being able to say, but what if I'm not fighting? What am I going to use this? This spell is really only for fighting. these spells have versatile uses, you know, silent image, mage hand, all that sort of thing.
I really liked getting a chance also to see Pedrick in some kind of action other than just wailing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, it was great to see him like do something that like really changed the course of the events in a big way.
It did, yeah. It did, and
yeah,
I mean,
that's it was the downside of Pedrick joining the group when he did, and hopefully, you know, next time he's on, he'll be able to say how he feels about that. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when he joined us, he did almost back to back massively heavy role play, and that was all we were doing was talking to people. We were traveling. We didn't do very much at all. And it was really nice to see that Pedrick was able to kind of get stuck into, you know, the group and see him doing things, which was really nice to see that as well.
Yeah,
he's a good player. I've played with him before. We used to play together over MRPG, which is a text chat role playing system with dice.
Yeah, it's a really nice. I mean, it's also kind of very in character for Pedrick's character because he's a war cleric. He's a cleric of war. You know, tactics are what's sort of taught in his temple, and so his ability. He's like, yeah, we can't have this other guy coming up while we're dealing with him. Let's put this blanket silence over there and contain the sound. While Rogar and everybody else turns him into paste, and Weird Hal is yelling bad sort of like insults at him. You know, you look almost far too dragony. You know, why are you wearing dragony clothes? And just the guy standing there going, "You're right. Why am I wearing these dragony clothes? I look like an idiot." You know, because he's taking psychic damage.
What I really love about those moments, though, is that if you think about, you know, put your 2019 head on, and you when you walk up to somebody, he goes, "You shouldn't look so business person-like," and you think that does not make any sense at all. But then when you make that wisdom save and you fail it and it causes damage, it's just so funny.
It really does, yeah.
That's what magic does.
Yeah, you can just see the guy the mental anguish caused by an insult, which I just love, which manifests itself as like boiling the brain. You know, I love that. So we're nearly at the end, guys. We're nearly at the end of our time because we're trying to sort of keep it to an hour today. I've been having a really good time talking with you. Quick question before we go. Where do you sort of so I've got a personal question for you to end this off. This is for you, Will, and you, Nate. If you were a sweet or a candy, what would you be? What do you think best represents you?
Oh, I don't get to pick. It has to be the one that represents me. Okay, hold on. I gotta think of a different one.
Oh, this is really hard. That's a really hard question. I've been trying to think about it.
I think I would be a Cadbury cream egg. I'm not sure why. I just think that's a really funny candy.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's the one that a lot of British people wait to see in the shops. It's like the cream eggs are coming back.
It's got the hard chocolate exterior and the soft gooey center.
Well, there we go. There we go, everyone. We know what emoji we need to make for Nate now. It needs to be a Cadbury's cream egg.
Wow.
And what about you? What about you, Will?
You know what? It's just gonna be. I would have to say, you know, the little flying saucers with those, the rice paper with
the sherbet in the middle, UFOs.
Too many of those. You just get hyper.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have today, guys. It's been really great talking with you. Thanks for taking the time. I know yesterday was a really long session, and probably everybody's a bit tired today, but it was really, really good. Before we go, really quickly, I have a few little announcements. First of all, anybody who's been with us for a while knows that there's a charity that we're really into and we really want to see people supporting. extralife.org, and it is actually, well, Nate, if you could just tell us a little bit more about that, please. Just give us a little summary about what it is and what they do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Extralife.org is a charity organization that is partnered with the Children's Miracle Network hospitals around the world to help sick and injured children who can't afford the health care they need. The website is extra-life.org. And we are actually going to be holding a 24-hour charity stream on July the 20th, Saturday, July 20th, 2019. That is a week from today. I will be running a 24-hour charity stream to support Extra Life. And there will be video gaming, mini painting, some D&D play here on the Meeple Palace with you guys, so that'll be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of different stuff. You know, we're just going to have fun and just try to raise funds for 24 hours. I'd really like to see as many people there as possible.
And that's going to be midnight to midnight Eastern Standard Time, right?
Yeah, midnight to midnight EST, which over there on GMT is 5 to 5 a.m.
Yeah, 5 to 5 a.m. That's right. Yeah. And so on our time, 6, and if you're in sort of like continental Europe, it's like 6. If you're in Eastern Europe or sort of towards Spain or that sort of, that's about 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. Okay, so that is the other announcement I had was actually going to talk about the 24-hour stream, but you've already done that, so that's brilliant. So and so if we're going to be doing a special Horde of the Dragon Queen for that. So hopefully everybody, we'd love to see you turn up for that because you know, we want to be there to support this as a group, but also you know, we just love getting together and playing D&D, and it's another opportunity to do so for a good cause. And yeah, so that
another
is
excuse to play.
no, there's any excuse to play. Yeah, any excuse to play. Anyway, so finally, the last announcement is that, and this is not charity, but just if you can keep an eye on our Discord, keep an eye on the announcements on our schedule, because we will be pretty soon looking to start a new campaign as well under you, Nate, as the dungeon master. So, and I'm looking forward to that as well.
That's right. I'm going to be running a campaign at some time on Saturday to start off with. It won't be for another couple of weeks, so probably not until at least the 27th or maybe in the start of August.
Yeah.
2019, but that's I'm really looking forward to it. I've written a campaign that at the table, if you were sitting at a table, it's supposed to last like 8 to 10 sessions, but I think that online with the kind of time constraints that we would need to kind of stick to, it probably will run a bit longer, maybe 20 sessions or something.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes anyway, because you can always expand it or whatever you want to do, depending on how much fun we're having.
And
yeah.
I also want to just give a quick. I also just want to give a quick call out to any people who are watching this in the United States. I'd like to get a few players from the United States to come in and join some Dungeons and Dragons, because I want to do something on the weeknights in the U.S., maybe like Wednesday night or Tuesday, whatever will be a good night for people in America is the point, after work. I know that you guys over there in jolly old England and Europe and stuff will already be in bed at that time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, more content is better, and I've got the chops. I've got the chops to DM, so I'd love to get a session going on American time as well. I think that would help.
To everyone who watches us to come and join us on Discord, because whether you want to run a game or whether you want to be a part of a game, you know,
we're still looking for 2 more players. We can still shove 2 more players into this campaign.
Well, there's 24 hours in a day, and it doesn't matter where in the world you are. At some point, the work day's over, you know, and so
right.
Even if you work, if you're, you know, if you're Australian viewers and you want something, you know, in your evening time, which is going to be right slap bang in the work time for, you know, those of us who are here already.
Yep.
Then you know,
Yeah, and don't feel constrained to Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to do Pathfinder, Starfinder, we'll have a fantasy role-playing battles. If you want to do
Any kind of finder you want.
Death Watch, Dark Heresy, if you want to do anything really. If you want to play, there's another one which I think is just called Dungeon Adventure, and there's loads of stuff. If you want to be part of it, please feel free.
It doesn't even have to be RP.
Shadowrun. I don't know.
Me and Xander, we're kind of figuring out how we can get Gaslands to work on.
Not only that, but there's plenty of online websites where we play board games and other games and have a lot of fun with our viewers and stuff.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of stuff where you don't have to really have, you don't have to be a streamer. You don't have to be, the greatest player. You don't have to be anything to join us. I mean, we all just formed up a group together because we were like, oh, let's, do a board game thing. And then I was like, oh, let's do some role play while we're here. And then me and Xander started planning up some role play, and it's been growing ever since. Now we've got our own channel, we've got our own Discord, we've got our own Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and all that crazy stuff. So I mean, hopefully we'll just keep growing. Hopefully we'll just keep growing. I mean, I would love to see this go fully international.
Yeah.
Prestige worldwide. Wide.
The moral of the story: join us.
Exactly. Well, I mean, we want to grow. Please, and if you want to help, and I don't mean to be one of those people, but if you want to help us help grow, I mean, please like, subscribe, watch us on YouTube. Give us a view on Twitch. I mean, anything. We're not asking for money or anything like that. But if you've enjoyed it, just let us know, because we'd really like just to hear from you.
Was it follow us on Twitch, follow us on DLive,
follow us on Twitter, follow us on.
Don't forget to press the bell button so you get notified.
Click the subscribe and click the bell button so you get notifications.
It's over here somewhere.
It's down there somewhere. It's over there, I think.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, guys. This is absolutely brilliant. So we're gonna call the stream now. Thanks again for giving up your evening. It's been brilliant talking with you again, and we're going to be doing a little raid now going on to see if we can say hello to a few other people. So the call is Roll On to Glory. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
thanks for watching.
Right. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody. Bye. We love you. Bye. That went pretty good.